According to Leonard Springfield, there is a group called the Blue Berets that are in charge of the retrieval operation. So they're a mobile, rapid response team. They've got UH-1s, they've got CH-47s, they're prepared to put up blinds, they're prepared to do diversionary tactics. They know how to derail trains on train tracks and have a chemical spill as a diversionary tactic. They'll stop at nothing to cover these things up. They're very well-oiled machine.
All right, so why isn't the government been able to get at this stuff?
Well, like we kind of mentioned here, they don't have the proper security clearances, and they haven't been read into this. A lot of the people and senators and congressmen at Washington, D.C., they don't even know any of this exists. They have no clue any of this even exists. This is all foreign to them. And even if they knew it, they couldn't get access to it because they don't have the proper security clearances. That's what we're running into. This stuff is so highly classified. It was classified higher than the atomic bomb during World War II. That's the varsity level that this is at.
And what are they trying to hide? Like, why is this so highly classified?
Number one, they're trying to hide the propulsion system associated with these vehicles, because if the propulsion system got out, essentially, it would doom the oil industries, it would doom the solar power, it would doom the wind farms, all of the coal fire plants would go offline. You're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar industry obsolete overnight with this new propulsion technology.
So what you're telling me is the people who run this country are complete and utter morons. Because that's what that tells me. Like, if you had any imagination or creativity, you could easily come up with a program where you allow these companies to bid and you give them preference for bidding in order to allow for this technology to be slowly integrated into, like, if that's the reason, they should all be lined up and shot. Like that, like that's the worst possible. It is an excuse to maintain power. That's all it is. It's just an excuse. Of course. There has to be something else. There has to be something else that's so dark. And because if that's the reason, these people are freaking idiots.
Oh, I'm with you. Now, December last year, we already have a vehicle in place within Congress where these first-hand militaries, they can come forward. It's already done. It's already written. It's already passed. They can come forward without any negative ramifications in Washington, D.C. They can come forward. It's fine. However, the new legislation that was just about to pass earlier this year got expunged, got destroyed, got thrown out. And the reason why is they were paid off by the defense contractors. So this is the legislation that would have given congressmen and senators in Washington, D.C. the teeth, the firepower that they would need to subpoena these witnesses and go after their employers and their supervisors that could get us to the bodies and the debris. And then when the contractors find out about that, they paid off all the politicians. And so now we're back to strips.
I actually did a deep dive of, let's like name names. Mike Turner, point-operated congressman from Dayton, Ohio. If you look at his finances, he married a contractor, became a multimillionaire, and then he subsequently divorced that contractor. And now he had, for a period of several years, he had negative net worth. So what does that tell me? He's a coin-operated congressman, right? Yeah. So you can easily leverage him with promises of future speaking agreements. He is the ideal. And if you look at his background, there's nothing remarkable about him. He's didn't go to a prestigious school, didn't do anything particularly noteworthy. He's the perfect patsy. He's the perfect scumbag, frankly, who can be directed and told whatever to do. He's just a creature of the military intelligence community. I'm just saying out loud what many people are thinking.
I know.
And so look, politically, I am not Democrat or Republican. This is equal opportunity offenses here. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he's the ideal creature for the intelligence community to do whatever their bidding is because they got him. They got him. So anyway, it's really frustrating for me to watch.
Oh, right? No, I get it. Here we are in the research community trying to be a united coalition of researchers bringing this information out. What do we got, right? We're working on a shoestring budget. We got $2.98 that we can throw at this. You go over to the defense contractors, they got multi-billion-dollar contracts. They can throw millions at this stuff. They can pay off anyone they want. So that's the dichotomy that we're up against here. It's a hard fight. And the longer this goes by, the more these legacy witnesses die, and then it'll be cover-up complete. And so that's why it's important. It is the final curtain call on getting to these witnesses now before it's too late.
When the United States and China clash, the world will never be the same, especially when forces beyond reality threaten to intervene. What if the United States went to war with the People's Republic of China? How would these rivals fight for supremacy on land, sea, air, and across the stochastic streams of time? What wonder weapons would be unleashed? What horrors would emerge from the irradiated sludge of the South China Sea? What heroes would rise and forever change the course of history? Tread into the deepest and darkest dimensions of the multiverse, gaze through a kaleidoscope of fractured realities, and bear witness to the disturbing visions of World War III from today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War, China. Available now from Bain Books at bain.com.
How many of these witnesses? You said there's 119
There's
different
119 cases within the Springfield dictation notes collection and that 7 status reports that are in that binder. So essentially, there's about 119 there. Now, Ryan Wood has just published an updated version of his Magic Eyes Only book, which he includes more cases and then going back to the 33 Italy case. So there's more in there. So when you put this all together and new things that have also come up, we're looking at 140, 150 or beyond. But bottom line is these military witnesses are telling the truth. They have no reason to lie. We've got independent confirmation by multiple witnesses that telling us that there is a crash retrieval operation going on within the United States government.
Do they know what unit it is? I mean, I've heard it's some CIA unit that's the global. I forget what it's been alleged to be.
Well,
but
what they've done is that the United States government cut a dirty deal with the defense contractors. So when one of these craft came in, they told the defense contractors, we don't care what you have to do. You can monetize this thing. You can have trickle down technology. You want to bring it into the commercial industry, go right ahead. All we want to know is how these things work and how we can exploit the technology for weapons advancement. We don't care what you do after that. So they cut a dirty deal with the defense contractors. That's what they did.
So who retrieves them now? Is it the U.S. government or is it the defense contractors?
According to Leonard Springfield, there is a group called the Blue Berets that are in charge of the retrieval operation. So they're a mobile rapid response team. They've got UH-1s, they've got CH-47s, they're prepared to put up blinds, they're prepared to do diversionary tactics. They know how to derail trains on train tracks and have a chemical spill as a diversionary tactic. They'll stop at nothing to cover these things up. They're a very well-oiled machine.
And the Blue Berets, are they a subcomponent of the U.S. Air Force, or are they separate?
Difficult to say. Difficult. It's a paramilitary. It could be a Delta Force type. I don't know exactly who they're connected to, but the bottom line is that a lot of this information is not classified. It's proprietary. It has been moved into the hands of the defense contractors now. So no amount of FOIA requests by civilians is going to get to it because it's proprietary now.
Yeah, where the government screwed up is by providing these contractors with an exclusive deal, right? Where I imagine that there is a tremendous risk of major lawsuits, particularly from companies that have gone bankrupt because they didn't have the same advantages of these slow, lumbering, stupid companies. Let's just say it, like Lockheed. They're getting an extra advantage against companies that did not have the opportunity to compete. And that company should be split up, frankly, but they can't do it because the defense contracts are so concentrated right now that there are only a few there's probably 3 or 4 major defense contractors like Lockheed, Donald Douglas, if it's still even around.
Boeing now, yes.
Boeing, which, good Lord, they were so keen to save money that planes are falling out of the sky now. So like we're trusting these people with our like the national defense. And the other thing too is they cleverly split all their production facilities throughout all 50 states. So all congressmen are pretty much I mean, look, our whole system at this point is corrupt. I have no confidence that we'll ever be told. I think the only way we'll be told is through work that you're doing and through direct contact. If the NHIs finally choose to make contact, they're going to make contact. Our government is it's just a mafia. They just have forced us to pay taxes and they don't deliver any services. And it's gotten worse in recent years. They don't protect us from criminals. They prosecute people who are political enemies. And sorry, I don't mean to go on this rant, but
it's all part of it.
Yeah, it's just like, what have they done for us lately? Nothing, zero, right? National defense, that's about it, but they're not even doing that now, right? Like we're sending billions of dollars over to Ukraine, which, should be defended, but at the same time, we're doing nothing about a border that's been flooded with illegal aliens, I'm saying it again, because that's what they are. And what we're doing is we're providing them with better services than homeless veterans. And it's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage. And this is just one more symptom of a government that doesn't care about its citizens. This is all about power.
To advertise on Through a Glass Darkly, email throughaglassdarkly@gmail.com.
And when someone says, oh, well, it'll disrupt the oil industry, they're full of shit. They're absolutely full of shit. That's just either a failure of imagination or is an excuse for something deeper. The only thing that would give me pause about something like that is there has to be some secret that's so dark, so deep, so disturbing that they can't share it with the American people. And it has to be something like that. Otherwise, these people need to be removed root and stem from running any sort of government. They need to be replaced wholesale. Anyway, I got on a rant like that, but I figured I was on a roll. So what do you think has to happen? Like,
I think what has to happen is something that always has had to happen, is that we've got to get to the physical evidence. We just don't need any more CE1 reports anymore. It's useless at this point. There's a mountain of evidence that cannot be denied that's been available to the general public, people all around the world, people in Washington for decades. That's never been the question. The question is, how do we get to the physical evidence that will get us to the actual craft and bodies? Anything less than that, and we're spinning our wheels. That's where we're at right now at this moment. We got to get to the physical evidence.
Well, especially the clock's also ticking, right? Because you have AI. And what the ability of AI is going to be able to do is to create a bunch of fakes and all sorts of things, which will hamper credibility of anything that's real, because it'll be difficult to distinguish between the two.
Yes, it is seamless now.
The other thing that's also coming is the virtual panopticon, right? Where the government is observing all, knows all, restricting all information, digital currency systems where they have absolute control over information, the information that we have. And the tighter that vise continues to become, the more difficult it is to get to the fundamental truth of what's going on. And we're not asking for plans on the propulsion system or anything like that. We just need to know if we're alone. That's all we're asking for. And I know the counter argument is, well, it's going to lead to all these questions. Okay, fuck you. Okay, like this has been a cover up probably for more than 80 years. You go back to Camp Gerardo, and excuse my language, but like I'm fired up about this.
No, I get you. I'm with you. I like the passion.
Yeah, and it's just we're at a point in our development as a species where if we don't give humans something to focus on outside of ourselves, we're going to focus on ourselves and destroy each other. And every day that the government lies to us and continues to lie to us and continues to kick this down the curb, they lose a little bit of power.
Yeah.
And I think this is the year. This is the year.
Yeah,
After this year,
I wish it was. I hope
this doesn't come out. The people who are involved in these programs who kept it quiet and who harmed people, no amnesty, nothing.
Mhm.
Too late, too bad. You're done.
Well, look at it this way. We have had 80 years to address this incident and this whole issue in a democratic process. We've tried to use the democratic process. We gave them their chance. Congressional hearings, we're going to help you here. We've got the evidence. We provided everything on a silver platter. We have tried the democratic process for so long now, and it has not worked. Because here we are. And at this point, we've reached this critical point in this whole thing now. We have got to make a management decision on this on our own. And we got to take the bull by the horns and do this on our own, because it's clear now that the U.S. government has failed in their obligation to the citizens to bring this forward. That's where we're at.
If there's one thing all these cases demonstrate conclusively, we don't live in a democracy. We don't even live in a republic. We haven't lived in one for, Michael, you and my entire adult lives. We just didn't know it. It was the internet that allowed us to see it. And the people in charge are terrified about it, which is why they're trying to meddle with free speech in every possible way that they can do it, while they're targeting anybody who disagrees with whatever official narrative, whatever party in power is supporting. And I think people are done. I think they're done with all of this, because we are not a republic. We are an empire. And it is obvious, and it's been that way since at least World War II with the National Security Act of 1947. So, somebody better act fast, and somebody better have a massive mea culpa for squandering all the, hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've all collectively paid, or, each of us have paid to the government over our lives to do absolutely fucking nothing for us except to lie to us.
I know.
So, again, I don't normally curse on my show,
okay.
but
That's all right.
I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it. I mean, these people aren't preventing anything at the border, but they're investigating Catholic churches. Have you ever seen a Catholic suicide bomber? Have you? It's just it. Anyway, I'm trying not to verge into politics or anything like that, but this is just a symptom of a greater disease.
Sure.
And until that disease is treated, it's just going to get worse. And I just hope that somebody, even if you watch these politicians, right, it's all cynicism. I look at the Schumer Amendment as an example, right? What do I really see? Well, I see Senator Chuck Schumer, who knows this is a popular topic. He knows it's never going to come out, but he also knows cynically that the Republicans have to be the ones to kill it, and that'll make him look bad. So why not support the amendment? It's going to get killed anyway. He doesn't really care about it getting out. And then the Republicans kill it and look bad. Both parties, it's just one party, two wings, right? And that's kind of basically my read of that situation. Yeah, we made a good faith effort, and oh shucks, if only those pesky Republicans hadn't killed this bill, it could come out. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So, but both sides are playing the same game, though. They're just, I get to play the villain this time, and you get to play the good guy. Meanwhile, unelected bureaucrats run everything, and that's what this is. So where do you think these craft are now?
They're at multiple locations around the country. Originally, all roads appear to have led to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but now we know that they have diversified their portfolio. So they're at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They were at one time at MacDill Air Force Base. They were at Eglin Air Force Base. We know that there's a facility at Edwards North Base Complex where things were done. So you can see they have absolutely diversified their portfolio.
And do you think there are 119, or do you think, well, actually, let me step back. I'd asked you another question earlier, but of the 119 cases, how many survivors do you think there are currently living today?
Survivor from the July 1947 crash lived up until April 1948. He's gone now, but we've got multiple bodies, no doubt about it. In terms of numbers, it could literally be a couple hundred. Could be a couple hundred. I think that number's a little high, probably less than that, but you factor in Aztec, Roswell, you've got Kingman, you've got the ones that we've done here. There's more on that, everything that Ryan Woods got together. So well over multiple dozens.
And do they appear to be of the same species, or at least do they have the same description, or are there a variety of different types?
Well, according to the sources and MPs who guarded these things in underground vaults at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, they appear to be 3.5 feet tall, gray ashen skin, oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose, almost a teeny indentation for an ear, if there's an ear at all. They were wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit that was like integrated into their skin. They don't know how they got into them. So fully integrated into their skin. There's that one mention of mittens. I haven't heard that too much, so that's a little bit out there, but it is in that report. And that's what the witnesses are describing. A heavy brow ridge, absolutely heavy brow ridge, for sure.
Yeah, I think Corso mentioned in Roswell that they thought that the skin-tight suit that you mentioned was kind of designed in such a way that appeared to be part of like a circuit element, right?
Correct.
Like the being was an element.
Fully integrated, yes.
Right, into the craft, basically. It became a part of the craft, essentially. Okay, and then do you think we've been able to reverse engineer any of this material?
You would hope so, right? After hundreds of billions of dollars since 1947 that they've poured into black programs, you would hope so. And I believe they have, yes. I believe they've made major breakthroughs on this. Yeah.
What about crash retrievals in the Soviet Union or China or our major peer competitors?
There's ongoing retrieval operations in Russia as well, but I don't think to the extent of what we've done here. I mean, here we go for broke. Here we throw billions at this stuff at the cost of taxpayers. We have drug money going after this stuff. There's other more sinister things that, like you talk about, which I'm not even going to go into that stuff. And you might know what I'm talking about. But
are you talking about with the border and certain elements of people crossing the border and using that as
something like that? But bottom line is, there's no country that goes for broke on this subject like we do here. I mean, no one's going to throw the billions and trillions into this like we do here. I mean, we go to the full extent here in this country.
It would really help if these fucking morons employed more brain power to the problem instead of spending all their money and effort on keeping it secure. And I know there's a risk to doing that, but you're going to get to the answer faster if you include people who have, who may be a little bit more difficult to getting a security clearance because they smoked marijuana back in the day or something like that, but who might be able to unleash some sort of a breakthrough on some of this. But I have to watch my language. I'm just like, this whole thing just makes me angrier and angrier the more that I cover it, because this stuff is not hard, right? To like run an organization, to exploit the technology. Right. It's not hard if it's run by competent people, but it's obviously not run by competent people. And that's what the most infuriates.
A rogue group, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rush testified that something like only 50 people in the United States knew of the full extent of the program.
If that.
I guarantee they are not our best and brightest. I could almost guarantee. There might be a few, but just the arrogance of like holding this together. It's all about power. That's all this is about. I mean, again, they don't need to release the plans or do anything like that, but just let us know that we're not the only ones in the universe before we kill each other, before humanity wipes itself out in a thermonuclear war, because that's what the drunken sailors running our government are like leading us toward. For what? For war they caused by just constantly pushing NATO forward, and then scaring Russia into an invasion, and then Russia is it's not just that they caused it, but their kind of policies from both administrations over several decades made this inevitable. And Putin is to blame. Obviously, he's the proximate cause, but he's not the root cause, right? It's just the arrogance of people running the government for the last 30 years are the root cause of all this, and we ought to acknowledge it. But the same people are also denying the right for all of us to know that we're not alone in the universe. I mean, it's simple stuff, and there's evidence everywhere of it. And I don't like the ontological shock argument. Again, fuck you, right? Like, if you can handle it, if the morons running this whole thing can handle it, we all can handle it. But just the arrogance of statements like that are completely unacceptable in a purported republic, right? In a purported constitutional republic. So it's just everybody right now. I mean, most people in government are compromised. They're absolutely compromised, right? Mike Turner, I just gave you plenty of examples of how he's easily compromisable, but there are others too. And it's just, it is extremely frustrating. In terms of people who are associated with these crashes, witnesses, etc., about how many of those do you think are still alive in the 119?
Of the original legacy witnesses from Leonard Stringfield, a slight handful. That's it, a slight handful.
But there's some of them are still alive.
Probably, but we're way past racing the Undertaker. I mean, some of them might still be alive, but not many. Not many. I really don't think there's many left because these things go back to 40s. So, yeah. I mean,
what's your best argument about why the government would want to keep this quiet? And I don't mean like cynical argument, but I mean like, what would be a legitimate reason for keeping this
kind of what
let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I know I spent the entire interview insulting them, but like, I'm just trying to war game this, right, through the eyes of the enemy, right? Because anyway, people, anybody who's on the other side of the truth, who hides and obfuscates, is the enemy.
The propulsion systems are definitely a big part of this equation. The free energy systems are a big part of the equation. You mentioned lawsuits. You're absolutely correct, because these programs are extra constitutional. They bypass congressional oversight and public scrutiny. They're extra constitutional. So, you can't just let a little bit out of the bag. It's going to lead to so many other questions. So many people that had their rights violated, so many other issues are going to pop up, and there'll be endless lawsuits. I think that's another reason why they're not going to let this out.
Again, it's a failure of imagination, as always. Like, there are very careful ways that you can do this.
Yeah.
That it's almost like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission sort of thing, right? If South Africa can go through like an anti-apartheid thing peacefully, get rid of nuclear weapons, all that stuff peacefully, then we can do this. I mean, this is not hard.
This has to happen. This has to happen. It's well overdue. And if it's treated properly, like Gordon Cooper had talked about, if the information is handed over to the scientific community as a united coalition, then we can move forward. That's one avenue.
Yeah, I can understand why the government would want to do just that, right? Because you're going to have national security implications, right? You're going to have peer competitors try to come in, try to get an advantage, take all the research that we spent trillions of dollars on and weaponize it before we do, and that's the end of the game. So I get that. That said, all they have to do is stonewall like they did before. You just say, look, it's real. These are the races that we've encountered. This is where they're from. This is the relationship that we have or don't have, or even like if we don't know where they come from. That's fine. So another argument that you commonly hear is, well, that's the whole basis of government. Like, the purpose of government is to protect us from these things. And my retort to that is, no, the purpose of government is to uphold contracts and to protect us from each other, right? We can work on the other things, but if the government is not letting us know of something that may or may not be a threat, they're not, by definition, protecting us. Why are we paying all these taxes? For what? Right? For what? Why? And it's just another question that I have for you regarding these. I know I keep going on these rants, but I'm on fire and I just can't stop. What do you think this propulsion system is? Do you think it's uniform throughout all the crafts? It operates by the same principles? Or do you think there's wildly different designs that they've discovered?
I only go by what has allegedly been reverse engineered. So, I mean, they were basically cracking the barrier, the gravity barrier, October 1954. They made the breakthrough. I think the date goes back prior to. There is a German contingent to this as well. So that's the first thing, is that the gravity research, that's borne out by all the newspaper clippings. At least by 54, we made a breakthrough.
Well, it's Kaluza and Klein that wrote the first, I think, paper that kind of led to string theory and all that good stuff. But
the other thing is, I definitely believe that they absolutely have also tapped the ambient 0-point energy quantum fluctuations of the vacuum. So they figured out 0-point energy. You don't need a huge external fuel tank. You don't need solid rocket boosters. You don't need liquid. That's the way of the dodo bird. They've gone way beyond that now. So in conjunction with cracking the gravity barrier, figuring out 0-point energy, they are light years ahead. They are light years ahead. That's where they're at right now.
Well, I mean, we can all see that. It's like the Casimir effect, right? That's where you can kind of see at least the beginnings of that 0-point energy sort of thing. But what are they doing with it? Like, if they have all this technology, what the heck are they doing with
the high ground in a battlefield, but they won't bring out these toys for a little skirmish here and there. This is something a completely different level. They're not going to do a Saddam Hussein or an Osama bin Laden. This is a whole different ballgame now. When you control these ace in the holes, these trump card technologies, these silver bullets, as they call them, when you have access to that level of technology, this is a whole different ballgame now. Yeah.
These people are fools. They're fools. What are they going to do? What are they going to do when people, if there's an internal uprising? How are they going to handle that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how are they going to handle that? These fancy weapons won't do a damn thing. Right? Or if people just stop paying taxes, what are they going to do?
Time is
every household,
ticking.
right?
Time is ticking. This has got to happen like now. Yeah.
Look, I'm not encouraging or recommending any of that, to be very clear, but I think people are at a point of such frustration that, and it's not just this issue. I think this issue is kind of the one opportunity that our overlords, let's be honest, have a chance to justify why they're in charge, why we're continuing to pay taxes and support these crooked institutions that have been lying to us for our entire lives, frankly. And what do they have to gain by keeping all this? I mean, the planet is, again, I'm not an expert on climate change, but the climate is always changing. The climate seems to be changing for the worse. There might be some areas that do better, particularly Russia and Canada, right? They'll have more farmland, and there's going to be areas that get it worse. But if we have all these technologies and the greenhouse effect is a real thing, and we're burning all this fuel and we're spending all this money, and people, Americans are suffering because of inflation, right? I think it's about time that you do something about this.
It is.
And you can do it in a manageable way. You just have to use a series of executive orders. Unfortunately, the two choices we have, both men are fundamentally incapable of doing anything like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's something far darker. I don't know what, but I can posit things that are horrifying. But, what if Roswell, they found baby parts, right? Like human baby parts and everything. Like, what does that mean?
Things along those lines on different cases. Yeah, I've heard things like that. Yep. In Vietnam, things were found. So.
Oh yeah. There's a case in Vietnam.
I've heard something.
Yeah, I think it's in Cambodia where there was a firefight and they found American and Vietnamese body parts on one of these these grays that were loading them up on board. Allegedly, I don't, who knows? I mean, these are all accounts of different people. But even then, maybe they were doing some genetic engineering. Maybe they were just collecting dead bodies to do research on, or who knows. But do you think we have agreements with any of these?
Yeah, that gets back to some of that early stuff with Eisenhower. That's difficult to say. I don't know if the Grenada Treaty is actually something that's real. I've heard about it. Everybody else has too. But what I try to do is stick to what we can pin down nuts and bolts wise regarding the military witnesses. At least we have something we go on. Because if we can track them down, if we have enough power and a united coalition, we can get to their supervisors and we can subpoena them. We can bring them into congressional hearings. And then that could lead us to the craft. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but it's way overdue now. This has got to happen. Something like this has got to happen. We've got to get to this information, the retrievals, all of the 8x10 glossy black and whites, all of the motion picture gun camera footage, all that's been stored in multiple warehouses around the country. It's for sure they have it. For sure they have it.
How can people outside of government kind of make this happen, assuming the government's going to fail us again?
Outside the government, if it's just left up to civilians, the only choice we have is to try to track down whoever remains who had firsthand knowledge of it. Secondhand's not going to be good enough. It's got to be firsthand. That's the only chance we have, is to track down these people. They might be able to lead us to where this stuff is actually being. Now, we know where a lot of this is at, but the problem is we just can't get access to it. That's where we're running up to. So, yeah, the best that people can do at this point is to track down the legacy witnesses. That's the last thing we can do. That's the most important thing we can do.
Well, I mean, it sounds like there may be more that are created in the upcoming days and months, as presumably these things still crash, I would think.
There is a rogue element within the military-industrial complex that is targeting, tracking, and shooting these things down. That's essentially a done deal at this point. That's why a lot of these things are crashing. They're not just coming here and crashing by accident. They're purposely being shot down.
How are they shooting them down?
No, they're piggybacking on pre-existing radar systems and using scalar weapons.
What's the definition of a scalar weapon?
A hyperspace howitzer that Thomas Bearden talks about. He talks about piggybacking on pre-existing radar systems, and that's how they can take these things out instantaneously. Just doesn't make sense where you have an ET race that's very advanced, that's maybe 1,000 light years away, and they come through forks and black holes and gravity wells and neutrinos, and they come here and then they crash. Can't be. There's got to be a much more logical explanation for all of this.
Is there a possibility that there are multiple species and they're shooting each other down and we're kind of just...
I can't prove that. I don't have any knowledge to base that from, but looking at just what's been done in the past and looking at how what you were talking about, the rogue elements about the military industrial complex, that they've gone off the rails, this is what's happening. This is the predicament that we're in right now. And it's so even the fabric of our republic, the more time that goes by.
So, well, I mean, it leads to other questions too. So why are we shooting? So basically, if this, whatever was visiting us was peaceful,
right?
There's no way they're peaceful now because we're shooting them down, and it's basically an act of war.
Well, if they did have a hostile intent, we wouldn't be breathing the air of Earth, right? If they had a hostile intent, because they could just take us out, no problem. Somehow they have been very reluctant to neutralize any threats on their end. They've held back, they've shown restraint. But what have we done? We just shoot these things down for military advancement. That's what we do here.
I mean, they can stop it at any time. All they need to do is announce their presence, and you'll have people refuse to support the actions of the government. But they don't do that either, which is kind of interesting. Which also kind of, the one thing that again, I have no firm opinion either way about whether or not they're positive, negative. I'm not a light and love guy, but I'm also not a human mutilation guy, right? I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Everything has interests. But when something consistently visits but doesn't announce its presence, you can't assume that they're fully a positive intent, right? Someone who's positive is typically open and upfront. Now, to be fair, maybe they do. Maybe they're just doing experiments here, and they'd ruin the experiment if they reveal themselves. So there are a lot of different permutations and combinations that you can kind of, waste a lot of energy on trying to figure out. And I've given up on government almost entirely. Like, I pay my taxes. I pay my taxes to the tyrants, and that's it. I don't cause trouble. I try to stay out of the limelight, but they're not here for us. They're here for themselves. It's all about power in DC, and that's it. And we just have to come to grips with that. All right, my friend. It was an absolute pleasure and good talking to you. And sorry for the rants, but I just couldn't help myself.
All good. It's all part of it. So, yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great presentation.
Thanks a lot.
If you enjoyed today's video, please hit like and subscribe, and also hit the notification button so you can be notified whenever I post new content. Thank you. Now, if you're enjoying the channel and you want to support it, there are several things you can do. In fact, there are 5 things you can do. The first thing you can do is just buy my books. I got plenty of books out in the market right now, and I would prefer that folks buy a book rather than giving me direct support, because they get something out of it. They get a real tangible product. The second way you can support me is by becoming a member on YouTube or becoming a patron on Patreon. And just go to either site and it'll explain everything. The third way you can support the channel is by checking out my merch site, which is here. There's plenty of stuff that you can get to support the channel. And I'd appreciate that you have it and can wear it. Not only do you help support the channel, but you also help promote the channel, and I appreciate that. The fourth way that you can support the channel, and this is really easy, is anytime you want to buy something on Amazon, literally just go to the description below and click on any link, literally any link. The channel gets a cut of that, and it costs you no extra money. You just go through the link, as I'm part of the Amazon Affiliates Club. The fifth and final way you can support the channel is through donations. Now, I don't prefer these because it's more of an expression of gratitude, but you don't really get anything out of it as a subscriber to the channel. However, if you decide to do these options, there's 2 options. There's Buy Me a Coffee, which is a separate site, and there's also, you can go through YouTube with either a super chat, super sticker, or a super thanks. Again, I prefer Buy Me a Coffee because that organization takes less money than Amazon does. But either way, I appreciate any support you are willing to give the channel. So thank you very much, and keep watching. I really appreciate it.